Welcome in to the WalterPicks Fantasy Football Show. We are here yet another week. We will not lead you in the wrong direction. I'm here with Seth. My name is Avery. We will get going with the top start, sits, and defenses and a kicker at the end of the video. Make sure to be around for that. Hit that like button if you're just now hopping in, and we will get going with the number one start of the week in Mr. Kyle Monangai.
Woo!
Call us crazy, but this guy has completely come onto the scene and taken everything. Now, DeAndre Swift is still going to be an efficient running back. They're both going to be used in this offense. But what we saw from last week, you can't ignore. The first week that DeAndre Swift was out in week 9, that matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, to be fair, it was the Bengals. They're top one, actually, in every single metric, efficiency, yards, everything. 26 carries, 120 or 176 yards. In this week's matchup, though, coming into this one against the New York Giants, it's also a positive matchup. This is one where we can start Kyle Monangai. We can expect the Bears to take pace in this game, hold their lead, hopefully, and I do think it's going to be a 50-50 split for the rest of the season. Seth, do you believe in Kyle Monangai? Is this his time of the season, or was this just a fluke game we saw last week versus a very positive defense?
Oh, it is his time of the season. I mean, and this is just one thing I want to highlight here in the WalterPicks app when we got it all up and ready to go. He was actually 6.2 yards per carry against the Saints as well in week 7. Last week against Baltimore, not as much success, but he was amazing. He looked like he was playing against like college students that were about to go as the Patriots offensive lineman Will Campbell says, work at Amazon. Like he was dominating this game at 176 yards. Everybody was just he was like the bus. He was taking everybody for a ride in this game. So I absolutely loved it. I actually traded for him 2 weeks ago, so it was perfect timing. So I'm locking him in for this game. At the very least, he's going to be startable this week against the Giants with Swift coming back, and he's going to have additional opportunities. I mean, when you're amazing, like Rico Dowdle, amazing with the opportunities you get, you deserve some more opportunities.
Yeah, and I will say, as far as just a running back split perspective for you guys, DeAndre Swift will probably continue to be the pass-catching running back. He'll still be valuable in PPR leagues in that way, but it does look like the 50-50 split is coming with Kyle Monangai in the short yardage and possibly even in the red zone, but that likely will be split, just like our next guy on the list, David Montgomery, a guy that is always taking touchdowns, is always taking usage from Jahmyr Gibbs. You look at his numbers from the past week so far this year, it hasn't been great. Like his snap share per game has definitely gone down from previous seasons that we've seen. He's averaging about 30 to 40% of the snaps. Last week against the Minnesota Vikings, he had 11 points. Now, a lot of it was from that one touchdown. 11 carries for 40 yards isn't crazy. But the reason he is a must start in this video is because he gets a matchup against my Washington Commanders. Don't bring up Jaden Daniels. Don't bring up all the injuries. But the defense sucks. The defense is terrible. And they are going to be able to run all over this team. They're going to get up early. I don't even have to look at the spread. I know they're favored by over a touchdown. This is a matchup where David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're going to establish the run, and they're going to do it pretty convincingly. So this is one where I can book a David Montgomery touchdown. I can book a good amount of usage, and this is one where I think it's perfectly fine to start David Montgomery, and I'm not worried about it. Seth, do you have any reasons to sit David Montgomery here?
No, quite the opposite. I've got, I think, 4 reasons to start him. We see Chicago, one of his easier matchups of the year, 13 points. Baltimore, easy matchup, 29 points. Cincinnati, 18 points. Tampa Bay didn't do so hot in that game. But overall this season, when he's played easier teams, he's been amazing. When he's played some tougher teams like Minnesota, Kansas City, Cleveland, Green Bay, he hasn't been so good. So we're seeing a direct correlation with his matchup. Very easy to see throughout the season. We see some great matchups coming up and some difficult matchups. I think we follow the matchups this week. It's one of the more positive matchups he's faced this season. So yeah, I'm gonna lock him into lineups. Especially, I won't mention any injury specifically, but with the Commanders missing some of their star power, that this would have been like maybe one of the games of the year rematch from the playoffs last year. Unfortunately, it's just not as exciting with all the injuries. That's going to give Detroit license to take over this game and give Jahmyr Gibbs maybe a little bit, take some off of his plate and let David Montgomery roll into the end zone.
100%. And then looking at another start, it is going to be Chris Godwin for us. And this is one of the riskiest starts of the video. He's only started in about 20% of leagues right now. He has been injured. He hasn't played. The 2 games he did play was against the Eagles and the Seahawks. 2 very tough defenses to wide receivers, all things considered. He saw 10 targets and 4 targets, 26 yards, ended up in both of them. The thing here is, he comes into week 10 against the New England Patriots. This matchup specifically is projected to be one of the higher scoring games of the week. We know the Tampa Bay offense is great. We know Drake May is rolling with the Patriots right now. So if Chris Godwin comes into this game healthy, he is essentially going to operate as this wide receiver 2 slash main slot guy. We know last year the slot role for the Buccaneers is what gave Chris Godwin a top 3 wide receiver finish when he was healthy. Now, it's not really a worry of if he's going to be running the routes because, again, in those first 2 games he came back, he was running 80% of the routes, 80% of the snaps per game. So this is one where if he is fully healthy, he's not restricted. I think we can go through and start Chris Godwin against this New England Patriots defense. Christian Gonzalez is questionable. He'll likely be playing, but if he does, he's going to be on Emeka Egbuka, which is going to even up that much more for Chris Godwin in this offense and a team that's probably going to have to pass a ton because of how good the Patriots are. Seth, what's your piece on Chris Godwin? Are you trusting the man this week?
Yeah, one of the things I like about Godwin and the Buccaneers is that they are coming off the bye week. They're getting healthier. They should be a lot healthier than they were as a team in week 8 because Emeka Egbuka also struggling with, I think, a hamstring injury that was severely diminishing his production. And the Patriots have not had their bye at all. So we're talking about a team that has not had any breaks from week 1, coming off a tough game against Atlanta, playing against a team that just got a crucial break right in the middle of the season. So I do like the Bucs and the Patriots to score some good points in this game, and the Bucs to show some freshness coming off the bye. I'm not going to force him into my starting lineup. I'm not going to say he's a must start because I do think he is rather risky in the 2 games he played, not really startable. It is a little bit of a tougher matchup as well. So I do think that he is someone you can start if you're dealing with other players on bye, a lot of key buys this week. If you've got players injured, that's the kind of time where I'm going to put Chris Godwin in the starting lineup because he definitely brings some upside that other people on your bench are not going to be able to match.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And with that, I would suggest, guys, if you haven't already, to try out the WalterPicks app because we do have a start sit tool here that we have built for years and years and years. It is every single year more accurate than some of the top fantasy apps like ESPN, like Yahoo. So I suggest checking it out. You can use code Avery to support me, code NobiS to support Seth. There's also a trade analyzer and a trade finder that we've spent a lot of time working on that is absolutely insane. But that will tell you to go through and start Oronde Gadsden, guys. This man, I remember calling him out weeks ago. He has been absolutely insane from the tight end position. I mean, you look at the last 4 games specifically, pretty much 80% of the snaps, he's running every single route at the tight end position. Like, there's no competition there. And you can see in his game logs, it reflects that. Like 8 targets, 9 targets, 5 and 5. He's catching almost every single one. He's averaging 80 yards a game. Like, this is an elite tight end. And it comes in this week against the Steelers. I know it's Seth's favorite team. I'll give him a chance to talk about the defense in that matchup there. But I mean, with the target share here, I know there's a lot of competition with the wide receivers, so there's always going to be a little bit of risk. But Seth, just give us a rundown on this matchup and if we're starting and how much we're trusting around at Gadsden.
Well, first I'll start. The Steelers defense has been extremely hot and cold this year. We saw some absolutely insane performances against one of the best offenses in the league. The Colts last week, it was turnover after turnover after turnover. And, against the Bengals, they couldn't stop them at all. Against some of the other teams they've been playing, they can't stop them at all. It's just a complete disaster. So I'm not sure what Steelers team we're going to get, but I will mention that when we see the Chargers, I believe in week 7 and week 8, or at least week 7 and 6, Joe Alt was out for those games. Joe Alt is done for the year. Unfortunately, he is a key to this offense, and I actually think that's great. Obviously it's not great for the team, and we don't want to see people injured. But for Gadsden, I think it does boost his fantasy value because when you're a tight end and you're missing offensive linemen, you're going to be out there. You're going to have those blocking, those late releases. Impossible to cover a guy like Gadsden when he starts as a blocker, and then you have to pick him up halfway through when he's already got a 3-yard advantage, using his size and strength to his advantage, as you can see here, dominating the game. So I'm definitely locking him in against Pittsburgh. Tennessee was a tougher matchup against tight ends. He still managed to have a really solid week, another top 12 performance. So I don't see any world where you're benching this guy. And like we talked about with Samps, I talked with him last week. If Gadsden is on your bench for someone like Brock Bowers, you may want to trade somebody away. Bowers for somebody like, Bijan Robinson, like some of the best in the league, Christian McCaffrey, or Gadsden for someone that is more startable, like someone that lost Tucker Kraft, or start both because he's a tight end worth starting. His floor over the last 4 weeks is 12 points, and that's not bad at all.
I definitely agree. And guys, you can shop some trades in the WalterPicks app as well. So definitely consider going through and checking that out, as well as our last start before we get to the sits of the video, guys, in Khalil Shakir. Shakira, it is time. We look at this matchup here. The Miami Dolphins, negative, positive. They are a very positive defense in allowing fantasy points. The issue is that they get blown out so easily and so fast. You just don't really need to pass too much. And you look at the Bills, they're a great offense. Now, this isn't a divisional matchup. So typically those do stay a bit closer. But you look at last week, 11 fantasy points. He had 8 targets. I mean, this is really what Khalil Shakir is. He's a low average depth of target guy. He's a slot wide receiver. He's going to be more safe and more consistent than a Keon Coleman, who at this point is droppable, or any of these other wide receivers. So I do think this is another matchup where we can take advantage of Khalil Shakir. He's had a pretty safe floor, all things considered. I mean, the week before that, he had 20. Before the bye, he had 6, then 11, then 17. So this should be a matchup where the Bills can just take everything they need to take from the Miami Dolphins. Like, this should not be close. The Bills should impose their will. And I think Khalil Shakir is going to get the main benefit of that. Now, there is always that risk of if he doesn't get used a ton before that happens, he could not be a very strong start. Seth, give us your breakdown on Khalil Shakir. He's definitely not going to win leagues this week, but I think he can be serviceable for you with injuries and buys.
Yeah, I certainly think he definitely can be serviceable. Minkah Fitzpatrick, I'll point out, if you guys have been following some of my content, I post the easiest and hardest wide receiver cornerback matchups every week. Minkah Fitzpatrick of the Dolphins is almost always on that top 10 easiest matchup list. We'll have to see who he specifically is matching up against this week. But I agree, Avery. Solid start this week. The PPR options in week 9, we saw he had one of the easier cornerback matchups. Even though the Chiefs are a tougher matchup, Keon Coleman actually continues to draw some of the more difficult matchups. And he faced Miami earlier this season, 4 catches, 45 yards. So let's say a floor of 8.5. He also added a touchdown, giving a solid week. Now, the only thing I'm worried about is if the Bills expose Tua even more, they may bench him. And the Bills, their biggest worry is that the Dolphins will find themselves a competent quarterback. So I think they have to try to keep this game somewhat close so that they don't bench Tua and try to find somebody else. But all joking aside, I think Shakir is going to be a great start. And it may be a good trade for target. I think if he's someone that probably will be that consistent, 10, 11 points. So if you're in a deeper league, that may be startable for you. Plus he brings that weekly upside if he can ever get into the end zone for that 14, 17, 20 points.
Yeah, and guys, make sure to hit that follow button on this channel if you haven't already. I mean, nobody else is giving you conspiracies about Tua and good fantasy information like this. So hit that follow button, and then we will get into our sits of the video, with the first one being Jakobi Meyers. Now, this one really does pain me because he started the year off so great. 10, 12 targets in the first 2 games, over 10 fantasy points in both. And then he just disappeared, like, quite honestly. 4, 7, 6, 4, 6 again. Like, his target share is definitely not what we want. Brock Bowers is healthy now. He's becoming the real Brock Bowers that we drafted him to be. And he's still playing every single snap. He's still running all these routes. Nothing has changed, except he's just not getting used. Trey Tucker is getting a bunch of snaps and routes run as well. We look at last week, it was a really positive matchup against the Jaguars. He had 6 targets, only 4 catches, 23 yards. Now, some of that can be Geno Smith's fault. I mean, this guy is definitely not an elite quarterback. But you come into this week's matchup against one of the toughest defenses in the league, against the Denver Broncos. Even if we don't have Pat Surtain healthy, which he's trending towards not, it's still a very negative matchup. Jakobi Meyers hasn't shown us anything. He hasn't put up over 10 points since week 2. I just now saw that, and that's absolutely insane. Like, we cannot be starting Jakobi Meyers, especially in this matchup. Now, the week after, in week 11, they do get the Dallas Cowboys. In that video, I mean, a sneak peek to that, we're going to be starting him there. But guys, this is definitely risky and not one that I want to take that chance on. Seth, is there any reason Jakobi Meyers can sneak into your matchup in this one against the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, he can certainly sneak into my matchup if he's on my opponent's team, but I'm definitely not going to be starting him this week. I do think, Avery, you mentioned something important. In week 11, he does play Dallas, who just got shredded by Jacoby Brissett and Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a good player, but he really hasn't been staying out except for this game really against Dallas. I might send a bag of chips trade for a 1-week start of Jakobi Meyers. You can probably get him for absolutely nothing. So before you drop somebody from your team, maybe try to trade for Jakobi Meyers, because you can start him in week 11, get a little bit of a spot start, have some decent upside that week. But I'm certainly not going to be starting him against Denver.
Yeah, we could also continue that into Geno Smith as well. It kind of just speaks to how positive the Jaguars matchup is. I mean, Geno was a top 6 quarterback last week, 4 touchdowns, almost 300 yards, and Jakobi Meyers still didn't do anything. like 39 passing attempts, and he still didn't do anything. So this week, again, against the Denver Broncos, it's not going to be positive. I don't really think we have to talk too much about Geno Smith. He has only had 2 weeks being over a top 10 quarterback. I'll go into our next sit in this video here, and that is going to be Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, my man Bill. It is absolutely unfortunate to see what's happened with the Commanders. Again, You guys know I'm a Commanders fan. There's been way too many injuries. The season is cooked, man. Like, don't put Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's probably not going to play again, but at this point, keep Terry McLaurin out, keep everybody out. Bill is going to be absolutely tanked because of all of this. If there's no Jaden Daniels for a long time, the team isn't moving. They get a really negative matchup against the Lions' run defense, which has been great against stopping running backs, allowing some of the least yards per carry. And he hasn't put up over 10 fantasy points since the Los Angeles Chargers game in week 5. He just doesn't get the pass catching upside. Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez is working into this backfield. So unfortunately, what looked like our breakout league winning running back of the year with how good this offense was looking, and now it's all kind of nothing. So JCM can't sit on your bench. There is a positive matchup in week 11 against the Miami Dolphins, but even then, I don't know if this is a place where we can trust him rest of season. Seth, what do you think?
I certainly agree for week 10. Again, I'm always looking to help you guys get some additional value. So while we're here, Avery, what do you think about this fantasy playoff schedule? Is there any running back on this team? Maybe it's McNichols. I know he's getting some receiving work, but we see Giants, Eagles, Dallas in the fantasy football playoffs, which, man, that would have been awesome if one of these guys was cooking. Are we dropping JCM? I don't think we're probably starting him until the fantasy playoffs. If he still has the bye. Are we adding another Commanders running back to try to get this amazing playoff schedule? One of the best.
Yeah. The best thing to do here is just hold JCM for a few weeks just to see what the Commanders end up deploying at the running back position with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. If the offense just looks absolutely terrible and nobody's serviceable, then we can go through and drop him. But I definitely do think they're going to use a bit more of a 2 running back system with Chris Rodriguez, with Jeremy McNichols there, and they're all going to split. So it's probably going to be a delayed drop. If you're in a smaller league, you can probably drop him now, but just give it a few weeks to see what they're really going to do with him. I don't think they're going to expand his role a ton, but that also is the same for Demario Douglas this week, guys, who's coming off a massive fantasy football game against the Atlanta Falcons of 20 fantasy points. Now, this looks amazing. Like, all things considered, 20 fantasy points against the Falcons defense is very good. They do not allow a lot of success to wide receivers. But the reason he's on the sit list here, which is going to make a lot of people confused because Kayshon Boutte is probably going to be out in this week's matchup here against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers defense has been decent against stopping wide receivers, but the thing here is that it's going to be a high scoring matchup. Drake May is playing great. So why are we not starting Demario Douglas? You look at his snaps, 24%, 21%, 23% over the last few weeks. He's just not getting enough snaps. And you look at that 24%, Kayshon Boutte went out very early in the first half last week, and his snaps did not increase. Like, he is not the one-for-one fill-in with Kayshon Boutte. The wide receiver archetype, I guess you would call it, that they are just completely different. Demario Douglas is the slot wide receiver. He is the Stephon Diggs, essentially, which is why we saw his snaps drop from 70, 80, 90% last year to 20, 30. Because Stephon Diggs is that slot guy. Kyle Williams came in and took all of the one-for-one work that was Kayshon Boutte's. Now, he didn't do anything with it. He saw one target with 50% of the snaps, but it's not going to be Demario Douglas filling in one for one like a lot of people assume when you look at the fantasy points. So, yes, it's a decent matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it's not one where he's seeing an increased amount of opportunities to where we can go through and start him.
Yeah, I would agree there that this is all risk. So for me, I'm probably going to add him in a couple leagues. I may even play him in a couple leagues, but that's where I'm missing players on bye, missing players due to injury, and I'm looking for someone that, hey, he dropped 16 points in week 6, he dropped 9 points in week 9, but most likely I'm probably going to get something in this 5 to 8 range. So I think that's really where he's a sit unless you really have to. Then I do kind of like his upside because, I mean, he's shown some big playability throughout the season. I mean, 3 for 71, 4 for 100. But if you're looking for some consistency or like, oh, I'm going to get 20 points again this week or something like locked in startable, I don't think that's what we're looking at here with Demario Douglas.
Yeah, and if you guys want to check the ceiling and floor of all your players, you again can use the WalterPicks app. We have this start sit tool that we have built for you. It shows all of that, and it'll also show you how risky Mark Andrews is this week. I mean, it was a great matchup last week against the Miami Dolphins. He had 3 targets. He caught 2 of them for 2 touchdowns. Ended up being the tight end 5 on the week because of those touchdowns with 16 fantasy points. Great matchup coming into a relatively positive one against the Minnesota Vikings this week. Their defense is great. They don't really stop tight ends as much as they do with the other positions. So Mark Andrews in this one is going to be more risky for me. You look at his snaps, it has been decreasing since the bye week in week 7. A lot of that is thanks to Isaiah Likely. I am a real Isaiah Likely believer. He has been increasing his snaps. He has been running more routes to where he's running the exact same, if not more, snaps per game than Mark Andrews. And I do think he is a touchdown or bust kind of tight end at this point in the season. We know Lamar Jackson is targeting his tight ends in the red zone more than almost every single quarterback in the league. So there's always going to be that upside for him. But if you're relying on the touchdowns, it's not something I want to trust when you have guys like Oronde Gadsden, when you have a ton of other tight ends, even Mason Taylor really out of his bye now, which have been playing very, very well and running more snaps, being the tight end one on their own team. So, Seth, do you trust Mark Andrews in an offense that is good and will score touchdowns this week?
I certainly don't. I mean, I wanted to bring this up because you mentioned the start sit tool. This is the power of that tool to show you help you make those tough start sit decisions. And the boom probability for Mark Andrews is low. For Demario Douglas, we're not really looking at anything. Obviously, there is always that chance that somebody will have that big week, but like Avery said, he's not filling that downfield role. And then Mark Andrews, same thing. The bust probability for both these guys is huge. We saw 3 targets for Mark Andrews. I'm not trusting anyone with 3 targets. It doesn't really matter who you are. You can score just like Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns on those 3 targets and have a great week, but you certainly still haven't built any trust. And like you said, Isaiah Likely, he looked great in the game as well. I think he did better on the receptions and yardage, just like anywhere but the red zone. Plus, I think on one of those touchdowns, I don't remember specifically in the game, but Derrick Henry, he could be score on the goal line for sure. Lamar Jackson could score on the goal line. Likely could score on the goal line. There's a lot of goal line threats in this offense. So all of them going to Mark Andrews again, I think unlikely, and I'd prefer to leave him on the bench.
And then looking into our defense and kickers of this video, guys, we will go rapid fire. And this is honestly some of the most important information in fantasy because everybody overlooks it. The number one option here on the waiver wire is going to be the Bills. If they are available for you, they are rostered in about 50% of leagues. A lot of people drop them because of the Chiefs matchup from week 9. But now they get one against the Miami Dolphins, which is very positive. We talked about it earlier in the video. If you cannot get them, which you likely cannot in stronger leagues, you can go through and get the Browns defense. This is a defense with Myles Garrett that is very frustrated. Like, they're not winning games, but the defense is playing great. They should get a ton of sacks on whoever the quarterback is for the New York Jets. It does not matter. This defense is good enough, and the Jets don't really have any true playmakers and risk that makes the Browns a tough matchup. Even with Garrett Wilson, if he is healthy, he's really it. He's really it. So I do think the Browns defense is a great one. You can also get the Panthers getting theirs against the New Orleans Saints if you cannot get them. This one is a bit more risky. We've seen week after week that the Panthers are great against positive matchups, but absolutely terrible against the good ones. So when you play the tough teams, they're putting up negative fantasy points, but the Saints is a positive one. They're allowing a good amount of points to opposing defenses, and the Panthers have put it together pretty decently over the past few weeks. I mean, they beat the Packers, held them to a low point total. So you can get those 3 defenses and Cairo Santos against the New York Giants if you do need a kicker. He has been more washy as far as like real NFL kicking ability, but again, the Bears are scoring at a good amount, and they get a positive matchup against the New York Giants this week, who are allowing a good amount of points to kickers and just teams in general. So that is going to finish out this must start and sit video for you guys. If you have any questions, make sure to let us know in the comments, and we will see you guys in the next one and live streams coming very soon.